So one day I ask you, I want to sing Visi d'arte. And you're like, no, Shida, this is not for you. So this is the misconception some singers have, that, okay, now I can sing, therefore I can sing anything, right? But you told me that this is not for my vocal range, correct?
Well, range usually refers to, from which note to which note are you capable of getting to, right?
Okay.
But that's what range means in general terms. But people who have the same range also have other differences apart from range, like the thickness of their vocal cords can determine a certain depth or lightness to their voice. And the funny thing is, when it comes to voices like men's voices versus women's voices, we don't question it, right? We just know, okay, of course they're different. But when it comes to within all women's voices or all men's voices, within those two different criteria, to find that there are different types is slightly more complicated.
Okay.
But we also know that from one person to the next, there are never two voices that are the same. That is like scientifically so. There's only one person who possesses that one voice. That's one of the three things that humans have unique to oneself, like, the fingerprint, right? And the patterns in your iris and your voice. There are no two people with the same voice. Zero. It's just yours. So if it is individual in that sense, and then there's like a small collective of people who somewhat have the same capabilities, within all women's voices, there's like quite a few criteria. So when composers write pieces, they write usually to the strength of one individual that they know or something, a soprano that they had in their lives who was going to premiere their piece or whatever. So that person somewhat determines that role's sort of fach, like in the type of voice that should be singing it. Can that be sung by multiple types? Sure, but not all types. So unless like you have enough experience or know someone with enough experience to tell you what is suitable for your voice, it's somewhat dangerous to try things simply because you like them. You might be able to sing all the notes, but your strengths in different parts of your voice may vary. It's not that yours is, when I say you, I mean one's voice is,
Right.
one type is better than the other, but their capabilities in terms of which part of their range works in such and such a way, given like certain pieces like to sort of live in a certain part of the voice and go back and forth to the other extremes, and some sit low, some sit high, some sit in the middle. So when I advise a student, like, that's not for you, I first of all, I mean, it's not for you at this time is important, because you could change.
Yeah.
And also for some voices, it's clearly, that is definitely not your voice type. Usually with experience and understanding, you can tell, even if the difference is subtle, that it is probably not going to work for you even in the long run, right? So that is where it comes from. So it is important to know that you must sing pieces that are good for you now, because once you practice that a lot, then there's a natural expansion of your technique, and it will be ready for exploring other parts rather than a little bit of this, little bit of that,
This is very encouraging for me, because I wanted to ask you whether one can evolve and grow into like those pitches or those abilities eventually.
Well, the thing is, everyone has limits, right? So, like, for example, like someone who sings like Visidarte may not necessarily be able to sing some like a beautiful Baroque piece, which is written for a much lighter voice and which with a lot more flexibility to the voice. So they have different strengths. not that one is better than the other.
Right.
The person who possesses the light, flexible, very fast-moving voice may love that heavy repertoire, but would probably never sing it. But that doesn't mean they are wrong to love it, you know.
Right.
So it's one of those things. You can't necessarily purposely evolve into another type. Things can happen based on levels of hormones or, you know, the health conditions, or whether or not one would have a kid at some point. Like before and after, some people have changes in their vocal abilities, some for the better, some for the worse. So it's very varied. So there is an element of not being fixed, but it's not something that one can like sort of purposely change
Right.
by working hard or something, simply because you love a certain type of music, you know, or some certain type of piece. But discovering more of what works for you might be an exciting thing too, because a lot of times, just because you got exposed to that one piece, you love it, you might not have got exposed to the ones that actually suit you, not enough of it. And then you'll be like, my goodness, this is a brilliant piece, you know? So there's always something waiting for you, you know?
I love to hear that. I would like to talk about music theory a little bit, if that is all right,
Of
because
course.
the mindset I came into singing was I just want to learn to sing because I want to add another key to my piano as an actor. I want to be able to sing and all that. And I wasn't thinking about music theory at all. I had some background because I used to play classical guitar, but not for singing and piano. So then you encouraged me to learn the music theory and dive deeper into the notes and the pitches and what is what. And over time, I kind of noticed the difference of somebody just singing versus somebody who understands what they are singing. I'm still on
Correct.
the path of growth and on that journey to even learn more, but I can now know the difference of somebody who's blindly sings, I'm talking for myself, versus somebody's singing off of the sheet music. So, could you explain a little bit about why it is so important for singers to know the music theory?
Yeah. I mean, for all musicians, it's important to know theory. And why is a question that you have to ask yourself. But like the best thing that one could say is that you already know from like similar contexts what the benefits are, by like, for example, if the only way you learned anything was by rote, would you be the same person? Like, say if you couldn't read, like I'm not talking music,
Okay.
you couldn't read, but you learn everything by hearing. Like, if you can imagine that, don't you think it's quite limiting?
True.
That's all there is to it. If you can put yourself into that place of like, I can't read, I can't open a book and read, I can't open my, like, you know, emails and read. Someone has to read it for me so that I can understand, hear what's on there. Singing, as you say, blindly is the same. The problem is that people who don't know that they are in fact singing blindly, like you only know that you're singing blindly after you have been introduced to some theory, right? Until then, there's no light for you to see, right? So it's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know until you know, and then you're just like, new light, you know? So it's one of those things. So the biggest benefit of knowing theory, I believe, is that you feel a sense of confidence in having some independence over having to depend on recordings and things, you know, which come with somebody else's interpretation, somebody else's type of voice, which all are going to influence you without your permission. while getting the things that you want as well. Like you learn the melody, for example, but you're also learning the speed that person likes to sing. And then you think that that is, you don't necessarily consciously make a decision to sing in that same speed, but you will sing in that speed because that's what kind of sank into you. And then that might not necessarily work with your particular breath cycle. And then you're having to undo all of those things. Whereas if you just learn from the piece of paper, everything that comes out of you and integrates into you is from you, which is a lot more organic and a lot more comfortable place for your particular instrument, right?
It wouldn't be a copy. It would be authentic you.
Correct. It's okay to listen to people, but when you listen so keenly in order to learn a piece off of a recording, it's somewhat dangerous ground, you know. I mean, harmless to some extent, but
Oh, for sure.
dangerous in some ways, yeah.
I get it. I get it. No, I have been there, and now I know the difference because I would just, when I was introduced to a song, for example, I would just listen to other people who sang it and would try to like sing the same way. But then when you put the sheet music in front of you and you see, oh, these notes don't even exist,
Right,
right?
right. And also, like when you have to collaborate, right? When you're either singing a duet with someone or just having a pianist play with you, knowing where you are at a given time, what happens while you're singing a certain part is all mentioned on the sheet. And if that information does not translate to your mind, versus when it does translate to your mind off of the piece of paper, the experience is so much more rich and the rehearsals are a lot more efficient. Timing is a lot more accurate. Things become easier, you know.
That's so true. And effortless, effortless.
Yeah, because you have knowledge to back your instincts, right?
What is the difference of somebody try to be so perfect at performing versus somebody who's letting go and just let the sound flow through them?
Well, the one who I believe lets go and allows things to happen, first of all, the only reason they can do that is because they feel confident of certain things that they've worked on, you know. You can't let go and trust the process if you have not put some foundations down, right? So usually the people who are having a hard time to let go are those who are not confident of their process or did something a little too fast or you know haven't learned that sort of trust with their instrument yet. It's not a hopeless situation, it's just it's not there yet. And the other thing is that people who are a lot more, you know, serving the piece rather than being conscious of what they might be perceived as tend to also be those who have a hard time letting go because they feel like if they let go some parts of them that they would rather not reveal may get revealed. um, Very often that part is the best part, um, because that's very honest,
Yeah.
you know, and nobody loves an honest performance in a way that, you know, criticism is required. You know what I mean? Like, as in, like when there's an honest performance, however, you know, sometimes slightly less technically accurate, maybe there's a connection to the listener that people crave, right? So
Yeah.
that is there. So the more you are confident in your technique, the more you become confident enough to let go of that, the most vulnerable side of you, right? So that's where it is,
That is
really.
so interesting.
You can't let go without having done the work, though. You know what I mean? Because you have to sort of be very mechanical about it and then let go and see if those mechanics kick in. You know, it has to be this back and forth situation. So, and also, there's never a perfect performance. I don't know. I mean, I think the people who let go are more realistic than those who strive looking for the perfection because no one can really define what a perfect performance is, right? If there is no clear boundary around perfection, we are most likely limiting our idea of what our best might be.
Very well said. Very well said. You become more relatable to the audience when you are imperfect. Nobody's perfect, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing is, we don't want to go, sort of wing it, thinking that there's no such thing as perfect, right? Because there's a difference of like underperforming.
Yeah.
So it's not to say, nobody's perfect, so how does it even matter? But there is a satisfaction of being able to convey what you want to without being limited by the lack of preparation or lack of technical work. That's kind of sad. You know what I mean?
Yes. You do the hard work, you do the technical stuff, and then once they become you on a cellular level, then you can let go on the stage.
Yeah, and then you give yourself permission to mess up too,
That
because that's
that
important.
part.
Yeah, because it's not always going to work. Never will it work like 100% of the time,
That part. One last question. What is wait, hold on.
Synesthesia.
Synesthesia, yes. What is synesthesia?
So synesthesia, I don't really, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, okay? So I don't know like the definition that you would find in certain books. But it's essentially where you're thought of as having like very in a basic level 5 senses, right? So like sight and hearing and so on. So but they don't necessarily kind of connect with each other in majority of people, but for some people they do. Like say if you hear something you can see a color or a shape, or if you smell something it makes you feel something in your tongue, or like the two senses, at least two senses combining simultaneously. That is somewhat unique, but they also say that, I mean, there's very little research still done about this sort of condition. It's not a disorder, but they say about 1 in 4 people have some form of synesthesia, and a lot of those who do have synesthesia tend to be more artistically inclined than others. It's not necessarily a strength. It's just another characteristic, like having, I don't know, blonde hair versus brown hair.
It's not like a sixth sense. Somebody who
It's not.
okay.
It's not. But for some people, it's very strong in a way that it can either get in the way of their life. For example, some people have number to color, meaning if they see numbers, like say number 2 is always red to them or something like that. And if they see numbers written in red, sometimes they read the number wrong, thinking that it's 2. So that could be a problem.
I see.
So kids who have synesthesia sometimes of that sort can get math wrong, not because they're bad at math, but that like sort of messes up with their understanding. So you have to be careful, in education, like when you tell people have these disabilities or something, like learning disabilities, like we don't know what the real cause is. It could be triggered by something like that, and has nothing to do with their ability to learn. You know what I mean?
But how can that serve you?
So there's ways to like for me, for example, like I do have synesthesia,
Okay.
and it's so like if it reflects a lot in my artwork, as you may know, like I do a lot of artwork. That's how one of the researchers of synesthesia, Greta Berman, she's the one who looked at my art, and that's how she thought I had synesthesia. She started talking to me, and I had no idea that this was happening. And she said, all your artwork points towards these characteristics, and then we kind of discovered all these things. But so there's like a sense of motion in all my artwork, like a lot of like curves and
Yeah.
it's like constant flowy stuff. And that's supposed to be one of the characteristics of artists who have synesthesia. And I clearly feel shapes when I'm singing and when I'm painting. Like it's like solid. Like, and I thought it was like everybody, you know, and apparently people who have synesthesia always think that everybody has that characteristic. It's obvious to me that a phrase has a shape, like
Wow.
a very clear shape, and it helps me. Like it helps me to know how my breath works. It helps me. So that part, like, unfortunately, I can't teach to another person because that's sort of like I said, like having a certain kind of color of hair or something. But so that it can serve you in that sense. But and also for some people, it's related to pitch. Like for me, it's not. Like I don't see color when I hear a sound. I don't. But for some people, they have it. So once they see that color, even if they forgot the pitch, they can recall the pitch because they have the memory of the color. So
Wow.
that's an advantage.
I think that's a
So
gift. It's a gift. To add, I remember one of my acting classes, we had to embody shapes with our bodies. They would put like shapes in front of us that it would just to show those waves and those shapes with our bodies in order for us to come out of our body and be flowing.
yeah. Yeah, so that is very similar to I think what I experience without trying to experience it.
Yeah.
It's very helpful. And I think that can be acquired, like in the sense of like, you know, you can tell yourself to feel certain things because when you think of a shape uh in a physical sense, it completely changes your sort of composition of energy and flow in the body. I'm not talking about the shape of your body,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
It's not that you have to become a curve or become, physically a different shape, but the way you feel certain things in your body is going to change based on that, right? Yeah, so that helps with definitely acting and definitely as a singer, because as a singer, you have to be allowed to move and be true to what you're singing.
Yes.
So you are kind of a singing actor in that sense. You can't remove yourself from your, understanding of just the feel of things, the physical sensation. That I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why I keep saying don't listen to yourself, because then it'll diverge your attention to the wrong place, because there's so much else going on.
Absolutely. But Tharanga, I'm so grateful to you and for you, and thank you for making time because now I have all this wisdom on recording for life.
Oh, you're
I'm so
welcome. You're
happy.
welcome.
Thank you so much. This was amazing.
Thank you. This was like fun and to see you after a few weeks of not having seen
I know.
you.
Thank you.